You've got a drink in your hand. Beer, wine, something regrettable in a plastic cup at a wedding. Pick one. And the whole time you're holding it, you're probably under the impression that drinking is a human invention. A thing we built, filed somewhere between fire and taxes. That impression is about 10 million years too young. The reason that drink doesn't kill you, the reason your body can take ethanol, which is, to be clear, mildly poisonous, got sorted out long before anything resembling a human was walking around. Not by us, by an ape that's been dead for ages and would not recognize you. The first actual humans inherited alcohol the way you inherit a nose or a debt. It was already in the body before they got here. Which means the most modern-feeling thing you'll do this weekend is also one of the oldest things your body knows how to do. Older than farming, older than language, older than your species. You're just the latest one to pick up the glass. Number 1. The 10-million-year-old reason you can drink at all, which begins, like a lot of things, with a monkey making questionable choices on the ground. Fruit falls. And fruit on the ground does not politely stay fruit. Yeast gets into the sugar turns to alcohol, and within a few days, a fallen banana is technically a drink. A weak one, 1, maybe 2%, about the strength of a beer you'd be a little embarrassed to order. For most animals, that's bad news, because ethanol is mildly toxic, and they can't process much of it. But somewhere around 10 million years ago, an ancestor we share with chimps and gorillas came down out of the trees and started spending real time on the forest floor, which is exactly where all that fermenting fruit was sitting. And one of them got a tiny edit to a gene. The gene makes an enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase 4, ADH4. It's the first thing that touches alcohol on the way in. Mouth, throat, stomach, so it meets the ethanol before anything else does. In 2015, a biologist named Matthew Carrigan rebuilt the ancient versions of this enzyme, going back about 70 million years, and tested them one at a time. He found that around 10 million years ago, it suddenly got roughly 40 times better at breaking ethanol down. 40 times better. Overnight, in evolutionary terms, our ancestors went from barely coping with alcohol to handling it like it was nothing. And this is the part people get wrong, so it's worth slowing down for. This did not happen because being drunk was useful. Fallen fruit is weak, remember. You couldn't get drunk on it if you tried, and an ape stumbling around the forest floor is an ape that gets eaten. The advantage was the opposite of drunk. It was tolerance. The ape that could eat the overripe, slightly alcoholic fruit without getting sick got to eat food everyone else had to walk past. More calories, less competition. The biologist Robert Dudley calls this the drunken monkey hypothesis, which is a great name for something that's mostly about not being drunk. What got passed down was tolerance. 10 million years before anyone could pour you a drink, your body had already done the paperwork. Number 2. The drunk animals you've heard about. Most of which are a lie, and the real ones are more interesting anyway. You've probably seen the footage. Elephants staggering around an African plain after gorging on fermented marula fruit, supposedly hammered. Monkeys swiping cocktails off resort tables. It's a fun image. The problem is the elephant version, the famous one, mostly didn't happen. In 2006, a biologist named Steve Morris at the University of Bristol actually ran the numbers. For an elephant to get drunk on marula, it would have to eat something like 1,500 fermented fruits in one sitting, roughly 27 litres of alcohol, and it would have to choose the rotten ones off the ground, when elephants demonstrably prefer the fresh fruit straight off the tree. They'll shove the whole tree over to get it. The math just doesn't land. And the most famous drunk elephant footage from a 1974 film called Animals Are Beautiful People was very probably staged. The animals likely fed fruit soaked in alcohol first. So nature's most majestic drunk is, give or take, a bit. The true version is stranger, which is the part nobody puts in the nature documentaries. There's a creature in the Malaysian rainforest called the pen-tailed tree shrew. Small, twitchy, looks like someone crossed a mouse with a regret. Every night it drinks fermented nectar from the Burton palm, chronically. First documented back in 2008, the nectar can reach alcohol levels that would put a human flat on the floor, and the tree shrew shows no sign of being drunk, ever. It just goes about its night. Chimps do a version of the same thing. A 2025 study tracked wild chimps eating fruit across 2 sites and found they were taking in around 14 grams of ethanol a day from it, about a bottle of beer's worth, without a single one of them turning into a mess about it. So, the animal kingdom is not, in fact, one big bar fight. It's a lot of animals quietly handling alcohol in their food and feeling almost nothing. Which, if you were listening 30 seconds ago, is exactly what our own ancestors were doing. The drunk part is ours. We're the only animal that looked at a mild buffer against poison and thought, how do I get more of this? Number 3. The oldest bar on Earth. Which is a graveyard, which, when you think about it, tracks. So far, this has all been accidental. Fruit going off, bodies coping. The real question is when humans stopped tolerating alcohol and started manufacturing it. Deliberately. The answer, as best we currently have it, is a cave in the Carmel Mountains in what's now northern Israel, called Raqefet. About 13,000 years ago, a people called the Natufians used that cave. The Natufians were hunter-gatherers, semi-nomadic, no farms, no villages in the way you'd picture them. And in 2018, a Stanford archaeologist named Li Liu analysed the residue left in 3 stone mortars carved into the cave floor and found the chemical fingerprints of beer. Wheat and barley, malted, mashed, fermented. A thick, low-alcohol gruel, closer to a boozy porridge than a pint, but beer, unmistakably. The oldest man-made alcohol anyone has ever found. Now hold that date for a second, because it's doing a lot of work. 13,000 years ago is before agriculture. Nobody at Raqefet was farming. These were people who still hunted and foraged for everything, and somewhere in that life they worked out how to malt grain and brew it. And it gets one notch stranger when you look at where those mortars were sitting. They were among the graves. Raqefet was a burial place, and the current reading is that the Natufians brewed this beer for funeral feasts, gatherings to honor their dead. So the first drink humans ever made on purpose, as far as we can tell, wasn't poured for a party or a slow afternoon. It was poured for people who died. You inherited the tolerance from a monkey. You inherited the ritual from a funeral. Which raises a real uncomfortable question. We tend to assume farming came first and beer turned up later as a happy accident. The people at Raqefet flip that order. They were brewing before they were farming, so which one was actually chasing which? Number 4. The theory that beer built civilization. Which sounds like something a drunk person would say at 2 a.m. and also might be true. To feel the weight of this, you need one deeply unflattering fact about farming. Early farming kind of sucked. When humans switched from foraging to growing grain, the evidence suggests they got shorter, sicker, and more worn down than the hunter-gatherers who came before them. Their teeth rotted, spines compressed from the labor. They roped themselves to a single patch of dirt and worked it until they broke. Foragers, by comparison, had it pretty good. So there's a real puzzle here that usually gets skipped. If farming made early humans measurably worse off, why did they do it at all? One answer, proposed seriously, argued about for over 60 years, going back to a famous academic debate in the 1950s, is beer. The idea is that grain wasn't worth farming as food. As food, it was a downgrade. But as the raw material for a storable, shareable, mildly intoxicating drink that sat at the center of your most important rituals, it might have been worth all of it. The settling down, the broken backs, the wheat that made you ill. The Stanford team behind Raqefet put it almost exactly that way, that the appetite for beer may have been part of what pushed people to start cultivating cereals in the first place. Now, I have to be straight with you, because this is the part the fun version skips. This is not settled. It's a real fight among archaeologists, and there are good people on the other side who think the boring answer, food, survival, came first and the beer was a bonus. There's bread made from wild grain that's even older than the Raqefet beer, which complicates the tidy story. So, file this under strong, contested, not proven. But sit with the strong version for a second, as you, not as a textbook. It means some real share of everything you call civilization, the fields, the cities, the whole settled-down arrangement, might be standing on top of a craving. People wanting the drink badly enough to rebuild their entire way of living around getting it. That's the strong version, and it's not a crazy one. Number 5. The first drinks we actually have recipes for, which sound, frankly, disgusting. By around 7000 BC, over in the Yellow River Valley in China, people at a village called Jiahu were making something a molecular archaeologist named Patrick McGovern later pieced together from residue baked into their pottery. It was a mix of rice, honey, hawthorn fruit, and wild grape, fermented together into one cloudy, sweet and sour drink somewhere around 3 to 6%. McGovern calls it a Neolithic grog, which is the politest possible word for it. It's the oldest chemically confirmed alcohol on record, 9,000 years old. Part beer, part mead, part wine, all at once, because nobody had yet decided those were supposed to be different things. A bit later, around 6000 BC, in what's now the country of Georgia, the one near Armenia, not the one near Florida, people were pressing wild grapes into actual wine in actual clay jars, the same basic way wine still gets made. Same chemical fingerprint, tartaric acid, sitting in 8,000-year-old pottery. And one detail gives it away. This stuff kept showing up in the good graves, the fancy burials, the elites. We learned to make it, and almost immediately we learned to treat it like it mattered. Fast. Number 6. The part where the inheritance turns on you. Which is probably why you've ever had a hangover. Go back to the start. The whole system, the enzyme, the tolerance, the attraction, was built for one very specific situation. Weak alcohol, 1 or 2%, arriving slowly, wrapped inside actual food. Fruit, fibre, sugar. Your ancestors never met ethanol on its own. It always came bundled with lunch. Then humans got clever, which is usually where the trouble starts. We learned to brew, so the 1 or 2% became 5. We learned to distill, and 5 became 40. We stripped away the fruit and the fibre and left the one part the body was never designed to handle in bulk. Just the alcohol, neat, cheap, and available every single hour of every single day. That's the mismatch. Your body is still built for the occasional fermented plum, and you're handing it tequila. The equipment that once gave your ancestors an edge, go ahead, eat the overripe fruit nobody else can stomach, is the same equipment now quietly losing a fight with a substance many times stronger than anything it ever evolved to see. The hangover is that fight. The dependency for some people is that fight getting worse. None of this is a lecture, by the way, it's just the bill. The same adaptation that fed your ancestors when they were starving on the forest floor is the one that makes the third drink feel like a great idea. You got the gift and the trap in the same package. They were always the same package. So, when did humans start drinking? The honest answer is that there isn't a clean date because there was never a moment someone started. The tolerance was 10 million years old before we showed up. The first beer we made was poured for the dead. The first farms might have gone in to keep the grain coming. By the time anyone wrote any of it down, drinking was already so old it felt like it had always been there. Because, more or less, it had. Which means the drink in your hand has a very long history that has nothing to do with you. It's a thread. A monkey picked it up off the forest floor. A hunter-gatherer poured it at a funeral. A farmer broke his back for it. And you're holding the far end of it, in a plastic cup, at a wedding, feeling modern. Every person in that chain thought they were the modern one. You're just the latest to take a sip.